Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. Full color waterfowl, Justin here, going over some things for you guys, for you new hunters. This is an educational series on learning how to be a waterfowler. You already got the gun. If you watched the previous episodes that we've had out there, you got the gun, you got the license, you got the goodies that you need. But what is all the terminology? What are all the things that you hear about and see from other hunters that you might not understand? That's what I want to go in today with this one and dig deep into, well, what we're talking about. So when I've talked about it before of what this channel will be about is education. Some of this stuff, if you're a hunter already, might kind of seem watered down, might seem a little silly to talk about, but some of these things that I'm going to get into on later ones will be for you guys. But for now, this main video is for the hunter that's never done it before. They might not have that guide, that person to guide them in the right direction, that father figure. Those are the people I'm making these YouTubes for. So if you like that kind of content, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how I'm doing, how I'm not doing. But all in all, guys, the first few episodes of this is just going to simply be teaching you the very basics. And with the basics comes definitions of things. One of the things that people get caught up in definitions a lot with is shotgun shells. What shotgun shells you use and how you use them matter and help you get more ducks in your boat and more ducks home to your family. So number one thing that I see that hunters screw up on, they pick the wrong shot size. Shot size matters for a lot of ducks. There are some ducks that are tougher than others. Divers can take a hit and keep on trucking. So you have to be able to understand what's in these little things that makes all the difference when you're in the marsh. So as far as definitions go, shot size matters. And what I'm referring to when I say shot size, so one good rule of thumb, the bigger the number, the smaller the pellet. So if you're shooting clay pigeons, you're going to be using shotgun shells that have 9-shot or 8-shot or sometimes even 7.5-shot. Those are small, tiny little pellets that cast a big pattern out at your clay pigeon to be able to knock that clay pigeon out of the air. They're not meant for taking out game unless you're shooting something small like a mourning dove and that kind of thing. When you get into duck calibers and duck sizes, typically you're using a 20 gauge, a 12 gauge, and with shotguns, it's actually, well, the opposite. The smaller the number, the bigger the gauge. But then shot sizes, the bigger the number, the smaller the pellet. Confusing, I know. Say you went out and you bought yourself a 12 gauge shotgun. You're going to get, traditionally you'll get 2 3/4 inch shells or you'll get 3-inch shells. With duck ammo, they vary from time to time on feet per second, but typically they're anywhere from 1450 to 1700 feet a second as far as how fast the stuff's flying out of these shells when you're shooting. Knowing your birds that are in your area is a big part of that. If you know you have a bunch of small teal and wood ducks, and that's primarily what you're going after, you can scale it down to where you're shooting 6-shot or 5-shot at teal versus shooting 2-shot, which is just below the size of an actual BB and a BB gun, at mallards and bigger ducks. So that's something to consider as well. We'll get into more of the shotgunning and all the different things that people get into to try from a 410 to 12 gauge and 20 gauge. We'll get into that stuff later, once we get out of the weeds of definitions and stuff like that. If you're a beginner hunter, say you're somebody that's a little short, can't really hold the gun up too well, drop down to a 20 gauge, smaller caliber, smaller shots, less recoil, gonna help you out a little bit to be able to get on birds because, well, you're not fearful of the gun that you're shooting. That's something to consider as well. So once you've selected your shot size, say primarily you're going after mallards and wood ducks, and say maybe you might see some gadwalls and stuff as well. We'll get into bird ID once we get through some of these episodes as well. But once you get to the point where you have everything you need for the ammunition, the gun, and then you're getting into your calls, you'll hear definitions of single reed, double reed, whistle, all that kind of stuff, goose flute, all those things. If you're a new hunter getting into it, find the simplistic stuff first. This right here is a single reed call from Last Flight Calls. Very easy to blow, very easy to understand, and it gets you on birds because it's not really that hard to use. So when you're getting into those things, make sure that you're understanding it from the perspective of single reed, relatively easy to use. Double reed, a little harder to use. They can get stuck from time to time. The reeds can get stuck in the call, so when you need it most, it might not be there for you. So use the things to start off that get you on those birds and have you out there being successful. The other thing, you'll have people getting into whistles. Whistles can do many different things, from whistling birds like your wood ducks and your pintails and your widgeon. But they are also, they can do many other things for calling in wood ducks. This one even does a mourning dove and that kind of thing. But once you understand what birds you're seeing with your bird identification and seeing those wing bars, which I'll talk about in a minute, it makes all the difference with knowing what to call or what other call to use. So let's face it, will a widgeon come into a mallard call? Yeah, they can. But if you're seeing widgeons in your area and you understand them, wouldn't you want to be going? Those are the calls that pintails and widgeons make. Knowing the bird, understanding them fully, helps you pick out the gear that you need. One big thing you will hear in the waterfowl world is spinning wing decoys. So what's a spinning wing decoy? Well, if you've never been in the world of duck hunting, you probably don't know the companies that are out there that make certain things. Avian X, you got Mojo, you got Lucky Duck, you got all these different companies that produce stuff for you to go out and, well, play with toys. Play with big boy toys in the marsh. You see, this is a spinning wing decoy. This is the ES King by Mojo. And again, not sponsored by them in any way, shape, or form, but this is what people are referring to when they're referring to a spinning wing decoy. This has a battery on the bottom of it that is a chargeable lithium battery, and it has rotating wings. One side is colored and one side is white. And what this is mimicking is when ducks are flying, landing on the water, or sitting up preening themselves, you're seeing that flash. When you're getting that flash, that tells the ducks something's going on down there, and I want to come down, take a look, and they come into your decoys, and well, you're there as a hunter and you get to take one home, if you can hit them. Some of the other definitions that you hear are very simple. We got regular foam-filled decoys, which are, well, foam-filled. So if you're shooting ducks in your decoys and they're foam-filled, well, they won't sink. Other decoys aren't foam-filled. The foam ones get a little heavier, so if you're only bringing in, say, 10 to 15 decoys, yeah, maybe you go with foam-filled stuff. If you have to backpack them in, and you got your decoy bag on your backpack full of decoys, you're probably going to want the lightest stuff you can find. So take that into account when you're getting ready to go out hunting, because, well, sometimes that little bit of extra non-weight in your backpack can make a huge difference. So what are some of the definitions that you might hear, or words that you might hear in a situation hunting on public land? See, on public land, they vary from state to state, and the regulations vary from state to state as well. I'm going to talk on it from Wisconsin perspective because that's where I live. You have on state land, you will have areas called refuges. Refuges are safe havens for ducks to be able to, and other wildlife for that matter, to be able to get away from hunters and rest. Be able to get away from the hunting pressure, hiking pressure, biking, dog walking, and all like. To have those birds have an area as a safe haven to land, get away from everything, and just be ducks, because that's what they want to do, and that's why they want to be out in the marsh in the first place. So you have to understand where those lines are. Most of the time when you're in a refuge area or on a public land area and you see signs pounded in, when they pound signs in, they're going to pound them in at specific angles. And when they pound them in at those specific angles, where those signs are pointing tell you this is the refuge line and you need to stay out of those areas. So you have to understand that as well to keep your butt out of trouble, because you can't hunt in a refuge. So you got to know those things when you're hunting on public land. Or national refuges and stuff like that as well, because that is something that is very held dear to letting those animals get some rest, get away from us for a little bit. Sometimes hunting on public land can be tricky. You have to know where those boundaries are, and well, you want to get away from people. So my best advice for you is going out and understanding different areas that are walk-in spots or paddle back-in spots. And what I mean by that is simply finding a parking lot that has walk-in access that's easy to get your gear out there and get in an area where you can put in some sweat equity. Sometimes you got to do that, and walk your happy little butt all the way back as far as you don't think people will go, where you know there's water and ducks, and hunt those areas. It gives you a better opportunity to be able to hunt the way you want to hunt, and also put you in a spot where you're not having to worry about other definitions that may come into play, like swing birds. Swing birds, for you that have never heard that term, I was brought that term to me by some younger kids a little while back, and I really didn't understand it at much either. But simply put, if I'm hunting in a group over here and you're hunting in a group over here, and this group starts to call at ducks, and they're calling and calling, all of a sudden the ducks take a big swing to come over to you, and that group starts blasting at them sky high. That's called shooting at somebody else's swing birds. And I know, they're not your birds, they're everybody's birds, but in the grand scheme of respect and respectful hunting, it's just something you shouldn't do, something you shouldn't strive to be, and blasting at ducks treetop high is just not very, well, what would we call that? Not very sportsmanlike. Yes, let's just go with that. So a terminology you will hear is sky blasting. Sky blasting and water swatting. What are those? Well, sky blasting is when you don't yet possess the ability to call ducks to the water, and you're not able to get them into your decoys. So what do? You kind of throw one up there as a prayer. Well, what happens in those scenarios a lot of the time, guys, is you'll wing a bird, you'll injure that bird, it'll go flying off into the cattails or the weeds, never to be found again. So avoid sky blasting, learn more into the calling aspect of it, setting decoys, so that you don't have to be a sky blaster on public land. So what is water swatting? Well, water swatting, it can be kind of controversial in some certain circles, but for the most part, if you call the duck all the way down to the water, lands in your decoy spread, water swatting is when you take a bird on the water. Wing shooters, people that shoot a lot of birds and that kind of stuff, they see it as unsportsmanlike because, well, the bird's on the water, you didn't shoot it while it was flying, so therefore it's unsportsmanlike. Never really saw it that way. If you're out duck hunting and you want to bring meat home for your family, one of the most ethical ways you can shoot a duck is when it lands in your decoys to water swat. And here's the reason. If you're taking a duck on the water, where's the breast meat? All the breast meat on a duck is in the water. So when you shoot that duck at 20, 25 yards or what have you, all that meat is not exposed to the shot pellets that you're going to be putting at that bird. In turn, yes, you take the bird, you shoot the bird, you bring it home, and the meat and everything that your intended purpose was to eat that bird is safe and free from pellets because, well, you did a water swat and you got to bring the bird home. I see both sides' perspective of it, but I will water swat birds from time to time. Sometimes if you have a group of birds coming in, the best way that you can try to go home in a, well, timely manner, if you only allowed 6 birds, is if you got a group of 5 or 6 birds come in, let the first couple land, shoot the ones on the water first, and work your way up the ladder, shooting at the birds progressively as they go up. Because birds, when they get shot at, try to backpedal out of decoys, and when something's hanging there in the air, they're basically a sitting duck. So it gives you an opportunity to basically put more ducks in your boat and bring more meat home that's not full of holes to your family. A couple other terms you may hear people talk about is when you're trying to identify birds, and I'm not going to go into the full bird identification now. That video that I do on that is going to be very detailed, and well, I'm going to break it into a couple parts because there's a lot to go into when it comes to IDing birds. If you're a new hunter, if you're a new waterfowler, only shoot at birds you can identify. If you cannot identify them and you don't know your limits, well, you shouldn't be shooting in the first place. One of the terms you may hear people say is a wing bar. And well, conveniently, I have a mallard wing. It's like I bring props to this or something. You will hear people talk about the wing bar or the speculum, if you want to get all technical and fancy. You got your wing tips, and when you're looking at a bird, when they're flying through, you'll be able to see this wing bar in the air as they're flying. A lot of birds carry their color here, and then they have these upper coverts, which is basically like the shoulder of the wing. Depending on the bird species, these colors can vary greatly, and for a widgeon, for example, this top part of the wing, all white. Gadwall, the wing bar, underneath the wing bar is basically a white patch down here, mixed in with having rust color and stuff on the top of the wing. So you can get into a bunch of different categories with birds, but if you're looking at the top of the wing being the covert, the speculum being the color on the wing here, when you're seeing a bird turn and they show that color, you can tell from afar what bird that is just by knowing where the color is on the wing and understanding size difference of birds when you get into further bird ID. So guys, for today, that wasn't a ton of information, but it was enough. We're gonna do these series in small bits. I don't wanna get all wordy and ramble on about different topics to people and have it be an hour-long podcast or an hour-long episode on YouTube because, well, I don't have the attention span for that. I got things to do and I got, things I wanna accomplish as well. If you're looking to learn more of this, hit the subscribe button. Let me know how I'm doing. This is geared toward the new hunter. I will get into the depth of other things later, but for now, guys, if you're a person that just wants to learn more about waterfowling, get onto this page, get on to listen to the podcast that I do on Spotify. That is another avenue for you to listen to the good, the bad, and the ugly of waterfowling because there is some of that as well. So until the next one, guys, appreciate each and every one of you. Subscribe, let me know how I'm doing, and see you in the next one.